A new manifestation. That reading by Margaret Fuller. Of course, Margaret Fuller, we lift up as one of our own, a Unitarian transcendentalist. You've heard messages about her before from this pulpit. I'm not going to center on her today. You can go back and look and see a previous message if you want to find out more about Margaret Fuller. I'm talking about the message today, not the woman today. I had a clergy colleague that told a story of a little girl who comes home crying from school. She's crying because a boy made fun of her squeaky voice. The mother's response: when boys tease you, that usually means they like you. He probably thinks your voice is cute. Just smile and go about your business. And so it begins. A lifetime of being told that you're reading it wrong or being too sensitive. And you learn how to cope, how to manage in a male-dominated world. And then we women too often pass that message on to our daughters. I didn't have a daughter. I may have done that if I had. It was certainly passed on to me. Now, when I was in high school, I got a little bit rebellious, though, and I kind of didn't follow along necessarily. Started kind of thinking a little bit differently. Rode a motorcycle, and got kicked out of the Georgia Southern Library when I was doing some research over there in high school because I was wearing pedal pushers. Had to wear a dress, So I got a little bit radical. But I got back in line again because my senior year in high school, I fell in love. I fell in love with Fred Page. And so that was my senior year, the beginning of the year. And then the year ended in June. I graduated, and on June 12th, we got married. I was 17 years old. So it seemed like a good idea at the time. So I had previously thought I was going to go and, my plan was I was going to go to the University of Georgia and major in journalism. I was going to go to Atlanta, to the big city. I was going to be an investigative reporter. I was going to be Brenda Starr. But you know what love does? I gave all that up. I got married. I went to Georgia Southern. We got married June 12th. I registered for classes June 13th. Started studying to become a teacher. Finished in 3 years. Became that teacher. Then became a young mother. And we were both very active at First Baptist Church. So my goal was to try to fit in and become a good Christian wife and mother. Nothing wrong with good Christian wife and mothers, okay? But this was a certain kind of good Christian wife and mother. I really wanted to try to do that. And I needed some role models, and I like to read. Now, I've never even told Greg about this, about reading these books. But I found a role model. It was a woman about 10 years older than me. She was a singer. She was pretty. She had children. She was a good Christian woman. And she wrote about her life and her trials and tribulations and how she worked through with her husband to get through them as a good Christian woman. And I read all her books. Her name was Anita Bryant. Now, this is before all the controversy about the gay stuff. Now, y'all, I did. These books are no longer in print, of course, because she ended up getting a divorce. Because all about how she's a good Christian wife. But anyway, Anita Bryant, so here she goes, Amazing Grace, Fishers of Men. Some of these she wrote with her husband, Bob Greene, and some she wrote by herself. Light My Candle, Mine Eyes Have Seen the Glory, Running the Good Race, Bless His House. That's when they built their beautiful home down in Miami and all the difficulties with that, how she, prayed about it, and was able to overcome those difficulties. Raising God's Children, read all those books. Instead of being Brenda Starr, I was trying to be Anita Bryant. Anita Bryant had a friend she took some classes with The friend was down in Miami too and was doing these workshops. friend ended up writing a book about it and training others to do the workshops. And so I was the president of the Baptist Young Women, and we got a workshop to come to First Baptist. The Total Woman, Maribel Morgan. You heard of that? I got the book, went to the workshop, 2-day workshop. Here are the kinds of things we learned. Here's one quote. A total woman caters to her man's special quirks, whether it be in salad, sex, or sports. Now, I told you all before, when I got married in that Page family, all they talked about was sports. And if some of you who knew me back when, I became a huge sports fan because I had to fit in, right? Yeah. Okay, here's the other quote. It is only when a woman surrenders her life to her husband, reveres and worships him, and is willing to serve him, that she becomes really beautiful to him. She becomes a priceless jewel, the glory of femininity, his queen. And they gave you tactics and little ideas about what you could do to become this complete total woman. One of them got a lot of attention. You're supposed to meet your husband at the door wearing something provocative, like saran wrap or something, you know. But another one was, you know, you got a jar in the kitchen that you're fixing to open, and it's hard to open. And most of us, you go hold it under the hot water, you know, it expands the top, then you open it. They said at the workshop, don't do that if your man is, do it if he's not home, yeah, do that. But if your man is at home, you take the jar into him. Honey, will you please open this for me? I'm not strong enough. And if you do that and praise his strength, you will end up getting many things you want. It was sort of a manipulation kind of thing. And they always would say, you know, I did this and this is what I got. And actually, I was taught that as a child too. That you don't, if you want to ask your daddy for something, you wait till we feed him, you know, and you do these nice things, and then you ask, you know, this is the way you manipulate it. Women are taught to be deceitful manipulators, right? So I got the jar, took it in there to Fred, said, honey, will you open this for me? I can't get it open. Well, he was all for me trying to be that woman, that good Christian wife. But he said, Jane, this is going too far. This is so un-you. Just quit. You know, just stop. I'm grateful for my ex-husband for giving me permission to quit trying to be the total woman. Because when he said that, I quit. I quit taking the jar into him and quit a lot of other stuff too. By that time, I'd gotten my doctorate and I went to work at Georgia Southern, and I started being in a different environment and filling my mind with other kinds of things as well. Here are some of the folks that influenced my mind about gender and about equality. I'll just lift up some of these. Some of the Sojourner Truth, Susan B. Anthony. These are throughout history, reading about them and seeing what they did. Margaret Fuller, we read her words today. Julia Ward Howe, I've got a sermon on her as well. Mary White Ovington, I have a sermon on her as well. So a lot of these are Unitarians, you know. So Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Ida B. Wells, Madeleine Albright, and some more. We had Maya Angelou, loved her books. Margaret Sanger, Audre Lorde, Gloria Steinem, of course. Tom Robbins, that's a guy, but he sure did awaken a lot of feminism in me. You can be a guy and be a feminist. Star Hawk, we have a lot of her readings in the back of our book. Alice Walker. Sharon Welch wrote The Feminist Ethic of Risk and many other things. And there are many, many, many others. But I just wanted to lift these up. And then I wanted to allow some time for you folks to lift up some names of women who either historically, or men, people who have historically called you to have a better understanding of gender and gender equality, and just whether they're back in history or current, famous or not so famous, I invite you to just lift them up into the air, loudly.
Octavia Butler.
Ida B. Wells.
Hillary Clinton.
Nellie Bly.
Madam C.J. Walker.
Edna Fuller.
Abigail Adams.
Florence Nightingale.
Sonia Sanchez.
Leslie Roberts. Addie Dodson. Dixie Aubrey.
Woo! Absolutely, absolutely. So gradually I shifted. You know, you become what you eat. You also become what you put in your brain. And I went back to my former time where I would put off that total woman, and I took in what they said and became a different person. However, I did not use the F word. And of course, I'm talking about feminist, because at that time it had a very negative connotation for a while. Feminist, to a lot of the folks I was around, meant that you hated men. And I didn't hate men, you know. I like them. So I didn't call myself a feminist. But actually, a feminist, the dictionary definition, is a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. I believe that, right? So maybe I was a feminist. And gradually then, I became to use that word more and more. Now, this is a book, a little book by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. I may not have said that right, but I like this little book. It's We Should All Be Feminists. All of us. She says in this book, some people ask, why the word feminist? Why not just say you are a believer in human rights or something like that? Because that would be dishonest. Feminism is, of course, part of human rights in general, but to choose to use the vague expression human rights is to deny the specific and particular problem of gender. It would be a way of pretending that it was not women who have for centuries been excluded. It would be a way of denying that the problem of gender targets women. That the problem was not about being human, but specifically about being a female human. For centuries, the world divided human beings into two groups and then proceeded to exclude and oppress one group. It is only fair that the solution to the problem should acknowledge that. And then she goes on to say at the end that the best feminist she knows is my brother Kine, who is also a kind, good-looking, and very masculine young man. My own definition of a feminist is a man or woman, a person I would say, who says, yes, there's a problem with gender as it is today, and we must fix it. We must do better. I kind of like that definition. There's a problem with gender as it is today, and we must fix it. We must do better. She said all of us must do better. All of us. So I would hope that in this Unitarian Universalist congregation that all of us can claim that word and work to make it better, that all of us could point to ourselves. Can you point to yourself and say, this is what a feminist looks like? I didn't hear that very well. This is what a feminist looks like. All right. But we feminists have work to do, don't we? We've come a long way according to the cigarette commercial. Virginia Slims, but we still have work to do. On October 15th, 2017, in connection with the news of sexual abuse allegations by movie producer Harvey Weinstein, this actress, Alyssa Milano, encouraged spreading the hashtag of #MeToo to attempt to draw attention to sexual assault and harassment. She later shared that the phrase was first used by this woman, Tarana Burke. Tarana Burke shared that she initially lifted this up, especially for African American women and what they were going through. But she gladly shared it with others, me too, me too. It began to spread so quickly that by the time it got not only through Twitter with hundreds of thousands of tweets, then it went to Facebook, got into the millions of Facebook, me too, me too. That's all we were seeing. People were just posting just those two words, me too. Now, some of them posted stories. And the idea was that the reason people don't share it's because they feel alone. They feel like, no, it's just me and I did something wrong, or, I'm ashamed. But that we needed to come out and we needed to share this. And so women did, all over, me too, me too. And indeed, I went on my social media and I posted just those two words, #MeToo. Now, I would say that many women have even more than one Me Too story they could share. But it's so prevalent, and we realized that then when those stories were told. But I didn't share a story at that time because of the pain and difficulty with that. And then this past fall, September 21st, when Dr. Blasey Ford was doing her testimony that many of us watched, Donald Trump put this tweet out. He said, "I have no doubt that if the attack on Dr. Ford was as bad as she said, charges would have been immediately filed with local law enforcement authorities by either her or her loving parents. I ask that she bring those filings forward so that we can learn date, time, and place." Now, she was 15 years old when this happened. And he's saying, I have no doubt that she would have called the police, their parents would. Just bring that forward and then we'll see, because they're there. I got a little bit frustrated when I read that. Enough so that I finally did go on and share my story on social media with a Me Too. When I was 15, my 19-year-old boyfriend forced sex on me. I was a virgin and very religious, so this was devastating for me. But I would never have told my parents, nor turned him into law enforcement. I was too ashamed because I got in the car with him, though I knew he had been drinking. At that time in my life, I blamed myself. He broke up with me shortly after that, and I never got the counseling I should have had. Our president's tweet today shows he has no understanding of what it's like to be a 15-year-old girl. #why I didn't report. Folks, I kind of think that, when I think back about marrying so young and then trying to get into that, trying to be that Christian wife and mother, fall into that line, was an attempt to make myself whole again. I've got to be okay again. Sometimes I blame my religion more than I do the young man. But in any case, I had a Me Too story and more than one, but that was the one I shared. So all these were shared over and over and over again. And decent men were saying, oh my gosh, I may have messed up, I may have done some harassing things, and I don't know about, what do we do? The world has changed now. I see that we can no longer do what we've been doing. What in the world are we going to do now? And how am I going to handle this? Well, this young journalist from CNN, Nicole Stamp, she wrote a very good article, What Decent Men Can Do in Response to Me Too. What decent men can do in response to Me Too. And I thought it was so good that I've done something today that I don't think I've ever done in my preaching. I've brought handouts. I don't waste paper, but I brought this article for you, front and back, a handout. She's listed 14 things that men can do. And women, you can get this too and share it with others in response to Me Too. I'm just going to share 3 of them up here with you. There are 14 of them she shares, though. Here's one. Practice this phrase, that's not cool. Say it to other men who are saying disrespectful things to or about women. Don't call her sweetie. With colleagues and strangers, avoid diminutive nicknames like hun, baby, darling, girl, young lady, or kiddo. It's condescending to use pet names at work. Using preferred names shows respect. And this goes for all of us with any of these isms as we work to change. Accept discomfort. Changing broken systems takes work, and it won't always feel good. Conversations about sexism, racism, transphobia, privilege, cultural appropriation, and other social issues are all related. Look up intersectionality to learn more. And these are complex issues that stir up our emotions. But discomfort is an important sign that we may have something new to learn. So if you're feeling uncomfortable when some of these things come up, think, oh, there is that feeling that I may have something more I need to learn. Back in the 19th century, Margaret Fuller lifted up this phrase, a new manifestation is at hand, a new hour is come. And definitely it had come. We did make progress. But we're still working on things. Another powerful woman stood up in the 21st century, Oprah Winfrey, at the Golden Globe Awards. She shared words about this theme and about the Me Too and what was going on in not only the industry that she was in, but in all other walks of life. At the peak of her speech, she said, time's up, time is up, time's up. She went on to say these words, I want tonight to express gratitude to all the women who have endured years of abuse and assault because they, like my mother, had children to feed and bills to pay and dreams to pursue. They are the women whose names we'll never know. They are domestic workers and farm workers. They are working in factories and they work in restaurants. They're in academia and engineering and medicine and science. They're part of the world of tech and politics and business. There are athletes in the Olympics and there are soldiers in the military. She also says, so I want all the girls watching here and now to know that a new day is on the horizon. And when that new day finally dawns, it will be because a lot of magnificent women, many of whom right here in this room tonight, and I would say right here in this room today, and some pretty phenomenal men, like the men that are here, fighting hard to make sure that they become the leaders who take us to the time when nobody ever has to say, me too, again. Margaret Fuller said, a new manifestation has come. Oprah Winfrey said, a new day is on the horizon. May it be so.